So much. I'm now delighted to hand over to our next amazing keynote, and to introduce our keynote we have Sophie Dow. Sophie, over to you.
There is. Thank you, Paul. There you are. Every single person that's born has the right to a dignified life. And that's what we're fighting for. It was ace. So, we are absolutely delighted to welcome Pelle Sandstrak back to Edinburgh and to ITAKOM. Pelle was here in 2011 and spoke at our previous conference called No Mind Left Behind. And Pelle is a hugely popular speaker, mainly in Scandinavia, where he alone can fill a big arena. And you will soon discover why yourselves. He is a man who has lived and still does live a quite extraordinary life. And from that perspective, he asks us all to look at the absurdity of the norm. He has tried most things. He's been a muffin distributor, whatever that is. And he has been a funeral entrepreneur. He has done stand-up comedy and sit-down tragedy, as he says. But above all, Pelle is now an advocate, and has been for a long time, for Tourette syndrome. And he is an author of the best-selling trilogy. I've read them all, Mr. Tourette, the Mr. Tourette trilogy. I can't remember the titles of all of them, but you can tell. And yes, sounds good. And the books are the basis for a feature film that's in production. Pelle will take us on his journey from sleeping in a car wreck in the 80s, completely subsumed by OCD and Tourette syndrome, to becoming as normal as he wants to be. Actually, it says here 20 years later, but it must be 35 or something. Anyway, Pelle, we are so happy and delighted that you're here. Welcome to ITAKOM.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here in Scotland, Edinburgh. Thank you, Paul, for your speech. As a Scandinavian, I had trouble getting all the Scottish language, but it was great to hear. And it's interesting with these international congresses. We have different languages, and I'm a Scandinavian. I was born in Norway, raised in Norway, and moved to Sweden. So my soul is Norwegian and my heart is Swedish. So I speak a lot in Norway and Sweden and Denmark and Finland and in Europe. And I have to change language for every country I come to, so it's a bit difficult. Now I have to switch to English. So that's always interesting, to get Tourette syndrome into English. Some of us have problems sometimes with words I say, which could be provocating. Totally silence. But those words doesn't exist in English. So that's interesting. The brain can only say salami kuk in Swedish. Flugsvamprumpan and fiskmåskukjäveln flög till Island, spydde halva skiten. This is impossible to translate. Some ugly words will come here. Salami dick, I said here now. I said this said for several years. Different version of salami dick, fish ass dick flew to Iceland. All this combination of words. We can get back to that. But Tourette syndrome is not only ugly and bad words. They are also much more. I can imitate people. Have problems being on dinners because I can imitate people too much. It gets too much. Sounds in my body. My name is Pelle Sandstrak. That's hard to pronounce in English. Sandstrak. Neurodiversity is hard for me to say. Diversity. But Sandstrak is hard in English as well. How do you pronounce the Sandstrak? Antrak? I had a speech in Canada some years ago in Edmonton in Alberta, and the presenter was very nice because she said, on stage is Pelle Sandstrak. That's more like Tourette syndrome, because there's lots of sounds and a lot of different tracks. So that's a perfect combination, soundtrack. Sophie, I must tell, when I met Sophie some years ago, I was there was a release party in my second book, and everybody was there. I was talking about OCD. I had problem with the color red for many years. Red was horrible. Red was death. Red was the worst nightmare in life. Red was the worst thing. So everybody on this party had read my book, except for one. And this woman came up to this party dressed with a red leather jacket. Sophie, welcome. I never forget that. She's the one who doesn't read the book. Anyway, soundtrack, different sounds. When I stand here talking to you, as Paul, I have to move a lot. I have Tourette when I stand here. It doesn't disappear. When I come to Edinburgh, that would be very nice, the Edinburgh syndrome, everything disappear. But I still have Tourette when I'm here. I have to move inside my tics. My body is my tic. I have different sounds sometimes. From when I was a little boy, I always had opera sounds. And they just come. You don't plan this. It just happens. And that's the good thing in life and the bad thing in life. Today I'm a grown-up person, so I don't think about what people think. When you're younger, it's a nightmare because people stare at you all the time. You never are being considered as normal, as average, as common. Because it always pops out. Hey, yeah. Hey, this tick always comes. And people stare at you sometimes. They stare, but doesn't stare, look away like that. And they become a bit, strange. Some days ago, I was filling my car with gasoline in Linköping, in Sweden, where I live. I'm standing at the gas station, filling with diesel, and that's a good thing. It was a good day, a nice day. Doesn't your brain think that this is a nice day? Or do you think, oh, I'm glad, now I'm happy? Do you think that, oh, I'm happy, I'm glad? It just happens. In my body, it's a feeling of happiness. It's a good day, good day. The normal version of the human brain thinks it's a good day. And you think that, but in my life, in the Tourette business, it's a hug in my stomach. It comes up like you're going to sneeze. And it comes out in form of an opera sound. So I'm filling my car with gasoline, and suddenly, hey, hey, hey. And people stare, again, without staring. The drivers looking away. And there comes this wonderful woman, 75 years old, with her little dog. And she's the perfect therapist. She comes to the dog. I stand with the gas station, filling my car. Hey, hey, hey. She comes with her little dog, and she answers me with, yeah, ha, 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 and keeps on rocking. And I say, woo, woo, and she says, yeah, hi, hi. It's a perfect therapist, de-dramatize and accept. And I love this word. She's a perfect. And I met people in my life who are like her, who saw my personality, not only the tics. If you get into this world yourself, without analyze too much, don't analyze too much, Tourette becomes a very good thing in your life. You have a lot of things for free with Tourette syndrome. So this happens every day in my life. I can imitate people, as I told you, and I can get turned on by some words. Strathblade. Strathblade, I've seen it 55 times since I came here. Strathblade. Water, yesterday when we were dining, it was a Strathblade bottle. Everything is Strathblade. When I come back to Sweden, I will say Strathblade to my kids. It's a nice Strathblade. It's just not like get drunk. It's wonderful. Anyway, grew up in northern Norway, in this island, and it's on the west coast of Norway. And when you stand at this island and you point straight ahead, you have Iceland. And if you turn your body 45 degrees, you have the Shetland Islands. So to go by boat is faster to go by boat to Lervik than to Oslo, our capital. So we almost, part of me maybe is Scottish, I don't know. And when I grew up, I was the only one on the island who had Tourette syndrome. And I went back there some months ago, I'm still the only one. Nothing has happened. and when I grew up, I had these sounds, as I told you, different sounds. But before I go into that, I had three siblings. My brother and my two sisters. I have three siblings in my mind, which I've been fighting all my life. It's the word I told you, the normal siblings, the average and the common. And I have problem analyzing what is normal, what is a common human being, what is average. It's a strange world. Do you feel different? Are you different? Where goes the border from being different from other people? I don't know who decides this. Who decides when to be normal? I wanted to be normal, average, common when I grew up. I want to be like everybody else. I want to be an oil engineer or a fisherman or a whale hunter. That's what I want to be. But we had a drunk and half-drunk chemistry teacher who told me the truth. He said, you're a worthless, hopeless chemistry student. You have a big mouth, and I hope you believe in God. In God, yes. Pretend you believe in God, he said. Because you could be a perfect pastor. Just go on stage and do your and tell people that is God behind. That's better than chemistry. Don't be an oil engineer, become a pastor. Please, pretend you believe in God. And he looked like a test tube himself. He looked like this. Half drunk. Become a pastor. A wonderful person, like the woman with the dog. She told me the truth. And that's wonderful. So I can get, a bit stressed when I talk about. I have to talk about this because I love talking about normal life. Normal version of life we all live. A normal version of a person. A normal version of a person exists. You sit here, you are quiet, you don't get up and sing opera. That's a normal version of a life. You go to bed in the evening, that's a normal version of a human being. You get up in the morning, that's quite normal version of a life. If you don't get up, you're probably dead. But that's also quite normal. People die all the time. There's nothing original about being death. People die all the time. So that's also a normal version of life. But when you talk about normal personalities, then I get a bit stressed. I was in a supermarket in Sweden some days ago, and my wife calls me. It's the Swedish version of Morrison or Tesco. So I was standing in a supermarket, and it was a ticky day. A ticky day, then you're more alert to ticks. So she calls me and she says, and Johanna says, can we buy me some mayonnaise? Yeah, mayonnaise. And I asked her, what kind of mayonnaise do you want? And she said, you can buy the normal one. Okay, so I went up to the cashier and asked her, do you have normal mayonnaise? And she was professional. She said, yes, we have. Where is that? It's next to the one with lemon in. Oh, so the lemon is not normal. No, it's not that normal as the one without. Okay, so if I buy 2 mayonnaise with lemon inside, then I'm pretty disturbed. And she, no, I won't say that, but there will be another one coming soon with dill inside. And that's be very strange. So if you buy dill and lemon, you're a mental case. No, I wouldn't say that, but it's not that common. It's more average with the one without. So I said to the woman, if I buy 2 separate lemons and a normal mayonnaise and go back home and squeeze the lemon into the normal mayonnaise, am I considered as functional or dysfunctional? And she looks at me and says, are you a bonus customer? Not yet. So, and I'm standing at this Morrison, the Swedish Coop, and I'm stumbling at some stickers on the floor. And there's a sticker on the floor, and it says, you know what it says? 2-3 years ago, keep distance, keep this. It was teared apart. It was keep this. It was, old. I knew what I was looking at. It was a sticker, keep distance, COVID-19. Keep distance. 2-3 years ago, it was a sensation. It was horrible. It was abnormal, strange. But now the abnormal have become normal. The abnormal have become average. It's a common sticker on the floor now. We don't have to read it. We know it stands. Keep distance. Keep away. But so we remember the first time. I find it very fascinating. I remember my first tick. I remember my first tick today. Not the second one. Not the 44. You remember the first time I was looking at this sticker on the floor, keep distance, COVID-19. I don't remember time number 67. So you get used to it. Our brains get used to everything in life. That's wonderful. We keep on living. We're strange human beings. We are strange and we are strong human beings who keeps on living. COVID-19, we remember it, yeah. We remember the first kiss, I guess you remember the first kiss? Quiet, total. Do you remember kiss number 64? If you do that, you have it pretty close to diagnose. To say to your loved one, do you remember kiss 64? Yeah, but 65 was better. Then you have a double diagnosis. So you remember when people die, when somebody leaves us? You remember the message, the one has died. You remember the grief, the first week, the funeral. But you don't remember grief day number 87. You get used to it. The sticker on the floor gets the sticker in the mind, gets the sticker in the heart. You remember the person. It's inside you all the life, all the time. I remember at my first, when I didn't get my diagnosis, I met with Tourette syndrome as a young child. I grew up in Norway, as I told you, in this island. And this community I lived in, everybody was obsessed with salmon. Salmon fishing was everything. People was totally obsessed with salmon. So salmon ruled the town. Everything was salmon everywhere. Everybody salmon. And my father was the chief head of the salmon mafia. So he was the real salmon mafia. So my father was the godfather of the salmon mafia. Not Don Corleone, but Don Samone, the big. So I was the son of the salmon godfather. My mother was in a social life, and my sister was clever in school. Everything was normal, except for the boy. It was a bit strange. I started to spit inside, like this, imitating people. I wanted to become a whale hunter. This may sound strange for you, but so my first tick, which I remember in school, that's that I became a whale hunter. I didn't plan it, it just happened. So people, the teachers went by, and I was very shy as a little boy, very shy, but the tick came, hugging my stomach, and I went up to the teachers and did like this. Wait, there it's hit straight into the neck. The harpoon on the whale. So, what? Tick, big hit, straight into the neck. How do you meet this as a professional? What do you do? The whale hunting method, VHM. So the teacher came by, I did like this, wait, big hit, straight into the neck. And the teacher answered me, yeah, funny. Take it on Monday. Everything was on Monday. So this started like this. I started to say this kind of provocating words. There was a boy in front of me in the classroom who ate salami every day for 9 years. This salami came up, and my first tick became salami dick, salami head, everything was salami. Everything was salami dick, salami, it started like that. And I also imitated our teacher. We had a teacher who was very monotone in his voice. I sat in the classroom like this, trying to understand him. He started out well. He spoke like this. I put 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 9. And I heard a flue in the lamp, and the seagulls, and the salami dick, and 1 plus 3 plus 3 is 4, but 9, 6, 2, 8, and his voice disappeared. And he laughed at his own jokes. And I started to imitate him, and he started to leave the classroom, and he had this sound like saliva, in his mouth. So I started to imitate this. So this became a kind of troublemaker in the classroom because I imitated all these sounds. And this keeps on with shaking bodies, things like this. I have tics my muscles, and I shout, hey, hey, suddenly. We had a priest confirmation in Norway, and I called Jesus salami dick. And Godfather was a tomato ass, things like that. And the priest came back home to our house and said, this boy, he's talking about salami. And my father, salami? Yes. He's talking about Jesus and salami. This is not good. He didn't say dick himself. He said, here's a salami. And my father, what's with salami? That's not good. It will be very bad in the church if he starts talking about salami. If he had said dick, that's the easy way of the brain. Say the even worse word. So this became more and more a problem for our family. My OCD came out as well. And then my father suddenly, the coincidence is the meaning of life, as Astrid Lindgren said, if it's good. And Astrid Lindgren also said, she was interviewed at Swedish television in 1975, and the reporter asked, why do you always write about abnormal kids? And Astrid answered, because I never met a normal child. And she said, what kind of school? Where's the school? She said, where the normal kids are. She got no follow-up questions. Anyway, my father coincidentally picks up a copy of the American Newsweek in the salmon fishing house. American Tourist, I've forgotten the magazine. He lays in bed, reads the Newsweek, and there's an article in his paper about Tourette syndrome by neurologist and writer Oliver Sacks, who wrote the well-known book, The Wife Who Mistook His Hat for a... The wife who mistook his man for a hat, something like that, yeah, you know. She mistook anyway, yeah. That's the point, she mistook. And there was 13 signs of Tourette syndrome. Finally gonna get some help. We became so happy. My father got the contact with the well-known Norwegian psychiatrist, a professor in psychiatry in Oslo. We go to Trondheim, 300 kilometers south. Finally, we're going to get some help. And everything was Tourette syndrome. And my father calls another member of the salmon mafia, which contacts this psychiatrist, and we get kind of an audience to this man. And we get to Trondheim, and my father says, I never forget this, my father says in a taxi, don't start to talk about salami now in the beginning. Avoid the salami and the dick, and that's not a good start. And we came into the psychiatrist's office, and he was sitting like this, the psychiatrist, with his hair, nothing in the middle, and a cactus fruit. And I looked at his hair, and he said, tell me about yourself. And I couldn't help it. Hugging my stomach, I went up to this man and took his head. Fish, mug, seagull, salami, dick. And he looking like this. This is not good. He's a strange man. And I told him about my OCD. And if you work in the psychiatry business as a not so talented psychiatrist, you can mistake the OCD thoughts with paranoid thoughts, which he did. And he said, the boy is paranoid. He has no future. There will be institution for the rest of his life. This is a strange way of behavior, and his thoughts are not in this world. We can start by offering 250 milligrams of Haldol, which was the medical back then. And my father said, but my boy has every sign of Tourette syndrome. And he showed him this article by Oliver Sacks, and the Norwegian psychiatrist said, Tourette, we don't have that here. There were 2 in Sweden and 1 in Denmark. But Norway was a Tourette-free zone. Maybe some in the Shetland Islands, but we haven't observed it like an animal, Woo, flying in from Shetland. I have Tourette. So it was so thanks to my mother and father, they took me back to my hometown. If they hadn't done that, we hadn't seen it today. I remember the first time I didn't get the diagnosis. I don't remember year number 10 without Tourette. I remember when I got the diagnosis as well. 10 years later, 1989, in Oslo, I was sitting on his chair. Been sleeping in a car for 3 months, testing drugs, amphetamine, had been taking out teeth on each side of the mouth. I was ticking a lot, singing opera, walking backwards in the streets, a real bum, sleeping in a car. I didn't think that it was pity me. This is life you're living now, here and now, in this car wreck. I'm living in a car, so I'm a luxury kind of sleeping in the streets. I have a car at least. So sitting on his chair, I never forget this, ticking, and suddenly there's a knock on the door. In comes a prison priest, if that's the English word, I don't know. A priest in prison. He comes in, I sat in prison for 3 days. It's not a long punishment, but he comes in, this priest, and says, you have a visitor. A visitor? Yeah, from Sweden. From Sweden. I don't know anyone in Sweden. Yeah, he says he's Swedish. And you don't say that back in the 90s if you aren't in Oslo. So he must be some kind of a disturbed man. And this priest said he will talk to you, he wants to talk to you. And he said, with the wonderful thing, I never forget, another eye-mad person, he said, this man looks exactly like John Cleese, the English comedian. John Cleese? Yeah, it's a copy of John Cleese. I thought, are you joking? And in comes the Swedish professor from Karolinska in Stockholm. It was a copy of John Cleese. Had the same kind of body language, 190 centimeter long. His tie were glued together. He has a roundabout hair look and a thin mustache. A thin mustache there. And looked at me. He was kind of dancing. Who is this man? Is he in jail or is he a professor? And he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and I start to imitate him. So I answered him like this. And most people have said, interesting, but he does what nobody had done before. He imitates me back. Don't imitate people. Do your version of the body movement. So he answers me like this. I keep on, he keep on, I keep on, he keep on. And the prisoner, yeah, that's enough, and leaves the room. Norway meets Sweden. And Sweden won 3-2 in disturbance. He's more disturbed than I am. He stands on the floor like this, imitates me. There's a silence, maybe 1 minute silence. And it says, kind of disappointed tone in his voice. You have Tourette syndrome without other further complications. He seemed disappointed. Today we know what further complication is. I had no OCD, ADD, ADHD. And BBC, ITV, that kind of letters he said. So no other complications. And I remember Tourette back in Trondheim 10 years earlier, the man with the cactus fruit. I remember, but now it exists also in Norway. Then we have 4 in Scandinavia. We can start a club. And he takes out a small notebook and he writes down, a bit disappointed in his voice. I'm writing down that I'm 97% disabled. 97% disabled. And I thought to myself, an idiot like myself, sleeping in cars, no education, nothing, is 97% disabled. That's quite good. I'm not 100%. There's still 3% left. So I asked him, why don't you write 100% disabled? What's with the 3% left? And he said, like this, you're 97% disabled, 3% hope. And you shall never get well. I want to be normal, average, common. Don't get well. I met too many people within psychiatry who becomes too well. That's not a good sign. And now I know what he means. How well do you want to become before you become too normal? And that start my treat number 2. That's where everything went. I remember the first time. I don't remember year 10 with Tourette. The sticker in the floor, sticker on my head, sticker in my heart. And I asked the professor 3 years later, before he died, I asked him, how come you write 97% disabled? You did no examination. How come? He said, no, I'm a professor. I can say what I want to. People believe me anyway. And 97%, that sounds like I've been, examining you. So if I said 50% disabled, the authorities will come in. And you will not give. So you are too disturbed for the society. And that's where it starts. I get back to that later. I start my travel number 2. So anyway, the first time I remember, not the second time. I grew up with OCD, as I told you. I become more and more sick with OCD. I like Paul playing football. I like to do downhill skiing. That was my dream, do downhill skiing. And OCD became so strong that if I pretended to fall, maybe I can break my leg, and then maybe the OCD disappeared. Playing with your life. I fell in love with the priest's daughter. That's it. Meet your son-in-law, Mr. Salami Dick. He's back on the chain. And I make out with her, licked her mouth. I became a hero. She was a nice and sweet girl. And she later on got infected by brain infection. And people said saliva can make you, can infect yourself. So I became stressed with this. How do I know that my brain is alive? Maybe I will get infected. How do I know? So I started to bang my head against the wall 9 times. If it hurts, then I'm still alive. If it doesn't hurt, I can commit suicide. So I started to play with life. Downhill, extremely speedy. Extreme speed. I went slalom. I balanced on the railways, on trains, more and more crazy to almost die. I didn't want to die, but almost die, when I went on the road, on the local, the big road, standing like a ski jumper, and a car came towards me, the lorries, the buses, and were 10 meters away from me, I jumped away. I wanted to live. Keeps on with this every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, standing on the road, buses, cars, and 10 meters away, and they say, stop that! And I jumped away with tears in my eyes. You're an idiot, you can't die. And I did this in secret. And then there comes another hero in my life. The local school nurse, she was a local politician, not in the salmon mafia. Her name was Lillemor in Swedish and Norwegian. Lillemor means little mother. She was very big, but had the name of Lillemor. It was driving a Fiat 800. You didn't see the car, just saw her and 4 wheels coming down the road. Lillemor, she was an intensive school nurse. I never spoke to before, never done that. And she comes with her car, I'm standing like this. She comes to the car, Lillemor, and what does Lillemor do? She stops the car 10 meters away from me. She puts on the headlights. What? I stand like a frozen reindeer. And she gets out of the car in the evening in November in northern Norway, goes up to me and take a method which is very underrated. She takes the headlock method. I put it down on the bonnet on the Fiat, and she has tears in her eyes, and she says, don't you die for me, boy. Don't you ever die for me. Stop it. And I said, I'm an idiot. I can't do anything. I'm just ticking around and have OCD and all the thing. Don't you ever die for me. You can do so much. You have so much creativity in your life. Don't you ever do that. Don't you die. And she held me in this headlock. For me, it was 5 hours, maybe 10 seconds. And she had a tear in her eye, Lillemor, which landed on my nose tip in November in Norway. And she put me in the car, and she said, you have something going on in your mind. Your mind is a desert full of thoughts and water, she said. And you have mental issues. That's a sign that you're alive. You're living, boy. You're living. You have eyes which looks at you. You have glittering eyes. You shall live. And she drove me. I sat like next to her in the car like this. She always chewed this rigorous chewing gum with the 4 teeth. Wonderful woman. I grew, 2 meters. She's so inside me. You can do so much, boy. Come on. And she came into my life like a guardian angel. If I was fighting in the schoolyard, she comes with her intensive body, Lillemor, rigorous chewing gum, and took me my nose and put her lips to my lips, and we danced around. And she said, I always see you, boy. I always see you, Pelle. I see you always. I follow you. And I said, I follow you too. She came in. I smelled in a teacher's hair, ticks. I was smelling a teacher's hair like this. I was sent to the principal's office. And he said, if you stop smelling the gym teacher's hair. And I said, can I smell your hair? It has 3 hair, sort of like a child. That's not funny. Go out. And Lillemor came up to me and said, smell. Smell, boy. Come on, smell me. And I put my nose in her hair for 10 minutes. That's a long smelling. And smelled apple shampoo. It's very nice. And I grew as a human being. Wow, nice. She likes me. Come on, Pelle. Keep on smelling. Keep on dancing. Keep on talking. She was iMad. There's iPhone, iPad, iMad. The 3E. The 3I. She stopped the car. She had integrity. She said, you can do so much with your life. She had intuition. And she said, you're such a nice boy. She was incompetent. Not incompetent. You have to be competent to be intuitional. You have to use your intuition to be competent. So I grew again. And I was also standing on the roof of the swimming hall like this, wanted to jump. I'm jumping. And the teachers came out and said, don't jump, we like you. And I'm jumping, like this. I'm jumping. And everybody came out and said, calm down. And then Lillemor comes straight through the teacher, straight through everybody, like this intensive working with the body. And she says the words nobody dares to say. She says, Pelle, jump on me. I looked at Lillemor, she looked at me, and we did she said, jump now. Don't have so much time, jump now. I looked at her, she looked at me, and we did our secret sign, and I went down. And he put me in a Fiat and drove me home with Wrigley's gum. Is it 10 minutes left, something like that? Or is it? Yeah. Okay, 7. Anyway, so I got this self-confidence. I liked myself from my parents, my family, and Lillemor, and the drunken chemistry teacher. People who saw me. And I left my hometown with this kind of, insight. I came to Oslo, and you need help with OCD. You need help, you need treatment. That's important to say. You can't just live your life. I became very sick. I moved into a car. Before that, I lived in an apartment. I couldn't go to the toilet. To go to the toilet, 5 meters took maybe 6 hours. To pee, other things in the toilet took 7, 8 hours. My life was totally 100% disabled. I was a wreck, in a cage by OCD. So everything became strange in my life. But I understood that this is not right. This is not the life. I left the apartment because I was peeing in bags, plastic bags, hanging on the wall. Threw them out once a week, once a month. Moved out to the streets, into a car, and lived in a car for 3 months. That was a wonderful life, I'm sorry to say, but nobody interfered. Wonderful to be alive in that car. I bought for 10 Norwegian kroner, a dress, a smoking dress. I took the subway into the city, 7 o'clock in the morning, back 4 o'clock in the evening, to be normal. But this became more and more dirty, and I looked like a real bum, I was sleeping in a car, got free hot dog for 3 months. Every night, free hot dog. I'm standing in this hot dog line, and there's a man in front of me who takes a very long time with the mustard. One round, another round, and a third round with the mustard. I got a tick and said, hey, there's a lack of mustard in the world, salami dick. And there was the wrong person to get in a fight because he took me and put me on the floor and said, put his shoes on my nose and said, you're an idiot, will you work for us? Or I'll get you, or we'll kill you. And I said, I can work for you. I got a job as a running boy, it's called, in a Norwegian university left-wing radio station, Anarchy Radio it's called, and that was a run boy for amphetamine. And a girl came up to me and said, do you want something? Yeah, I want to sleep. I tried this tablet. And it was wonderful. I was high for 2 hours and slept for 13 hours. Fantastic. Then I owned the money, 1,000 kroner each night for the amphetamine. I didn't have the money. I asked my mother and father, send me 2,000 Norwegian crowns. I have met the German psychiatrist. Bluff. I went to Sweden on an Interrail ticket, lived on train for 2 weeks in Sweden. Suddenly, by coincidence, once again, I listened to Swedish radio, P3, a radio talk show. A professor talks about Tourette syndrome. This is like me. Does Tourette exist? So I write him a letter. When I come to Oslo, I think I'm going to send it to Sweden. So I go out the train in Oslo, backwards. I go backwards on the street. I have a sleeping bag as my jacket. Go backwards on the platform in Oslo Central Station. Turn around like this and shouts, hey, hey. And the past police takes me immediately away and put me back to jail. And a jail worker comes up to me and he says, just a waste of space, you're an idiot. But I have Tourette syndrome, I said. The man on the radio, the professor said it. And he said, go and shower and shut up. And then I sent the telefax to Stockholm. I went into the shower. I haven't showered for 9 months. I stood next to the shower and pretended to be showering. How do people think I'm showering? If I sing, I'm singing, I'm showering, hey. I came out of 1 hour, and he said, you have not been showering, but I believe you. And he sent a letter to Stockholm. 3 days later, I'm sitting on his chair. There's a knock on the door. In comes this professor from the radio station. By coincidence, he was in Oslo at the same time. He was a speaker at a conference called MBD. John Cleese, roundabout hair, mustache, tie glued together. And he says, 97% handicap, disabled, 3% hope, we have Tourette syndrome. And you're not going to be here. And I went backwards into Sweden in 1989, and he sent me to Skåne. I'm going to send you to a place which is horrible, he said. It's a part of Denmark, it's called Skåne. It was not a Skåne, friend. And you're going to meet a second professor. with a method which just come to Sweden, which is called CBT and CIBT. I take the train to Skåne, and he says, this professor in Stockholm, when you come to Skåne, go up to the receptionist, her name is Britt. It's very important that it's Britt. And you say the following meaning in Swedish, because they don't understand Norwegian in Skåne. And he said, I would like to have a life. And I have that piece of post-it still today. I go off the train in Skåne, come into this psychiatric clinic. It's a hospital which is in the Champions League. When it comes to some mental institutions, it's all the real patients. And I go into the waiting room, and there's a woman in the 6 years old playing squash without the ball. She laughs though. There's a man in my age who has nothing here on his head. He's banging his hand to the table and says, burn up, go to hell, Carlson, go to hell, Carlson, go to hell, Carlson, go to hell, Carlson. These people are mad, I think. I'm normal. Which comes in backwards with my sleeping bag. Go up to the front, and there is Britt in the reception. And Britt opens the glass, the kind of glass cage she's sitting in. And I'm standing there in 45 degrees. 45 is my number in life. And she looks at me, Britt, and she says, hi. And I say, hi. And she says, who are you? I'm Pelle. What do you want, Pelle? What do I want? Totally, I was blackout. What do I want? I put the hand into my pockets and I read this yellow note. I would like to have a life. And then Britt says, yeah, a life you're going to have. We'll give you that. When do I get that? On Wednesday. You can drink a hot cup of coffee, a warm cup of coffee. I promise you that, she said, and lay her hand on my hand. And there was a long pause, and she said, is that all? Yeah, that's all. And this is all. I got my life, kind of a life back, 6 years in therapy. That's another version of this speech, we'll take that later. How I get back to life, 6 years in CBT, in Skåne. And it took 10 years to become as well as I want to be. I don't want to become more well than I am. Without Tourette, life would be boring. Honestly. It's a horrible pain sometimes. You get stiff in your neck, but it's a nice, free thing in my life. If I hadn't had Tourette, I would come to Edinburgh. I would see you. I would be at the North Sea as an oil engineer, having a boring time with the chemical industry. So I'm a happy man today, living in Linköping with a family of 5, plus 2 cats. And I have to thank you very much for listening to this, and thank you, ITAKOM, for coming. Thank you, Sophie. And I have to admit, today, I still prefer mayonnaise without lemon. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.